Remember those African-American snacks no one makes anymore? The ones that lit up kitchens and church socials? They were sweet, quick bites that brought neighbors together every weekend. How did we let those flavors slip out of our lives? Sweet potato tea cakes were once the pride of community bake sales and Sunday socials, a simple cookie that carried the fragrance of home in every bite. Mashed sweet potato gave the dough a gentle orange hue and natural sweetness, while molasses and warm spices like cinnamon and nutmeg filled kitchens with an autumn scent no matter the season. Grandmothers stirred the batter with wooden spoons worn smooth from years of use, passing quiet wisdom to the children who helped scoop each round onto greased pans. The cakes baked into soft, slightly chewy circles that could be eaten plain or brushed with a thin sugar glaze if the family had a little extra. Churchgoers wrapped them in brown paper to sell for mission fundraisers, and travelers carried a few in coat pockets for long train rides when cafe prices were too high. Today, their memory lingers mostly in handwritten recipe cards tucked inside family Bibles. Tasting one now would be like opening a window to the warmth of a kitchen filled with laughter, hymn humming, and the sweet comfort of community spirit. Peanut brittle with sorghum was the kind of candy that snapped between your teeth and stuck in your memory long after the last piece was gone. Farm families boiled sorghum syrup until it bubbled thick and dark, its grassy sweetness richer than plain sugar. Roasted peanuts were stirred in quickly, the hot mixture poured across buttered pans and spread thin with the back of a spoon. Children waited wide-eyed as the candy cooled, eager to crack off shiny amber shards that caught the light like stained glass. Revival gatherings and county fairs always had a table piled high with these sweet, brittle sheets, often wrapped in wax paper tied with string. The sorghum not only gave a deeper flavor, but also reflected the ingenuity of cooks who relied on what they could grow rather than expensive, refined sugar. Each bite carried the flavor of late summer fields and long evenings under oil lamps. To taste it again would be to remember the easy companionship of neighbors sharing stories while the brittle snapped between happy hands. Buttermilk cornbread sticks brought the smell of hot iron and sweet corn to countless African-American kitchens, where cast iron molds shaped each piece into crisp-edged fingers perfect for dipping. The batter of stone-ground cornmeal, tangy buttermilk, and a little lard was poured into sizzling molds so the edges crackled as soon as they touched the heat. Children loved pulling the golden sticks apart, steam rising as they slathered honey butter across the ridges. They were the ideal companion to collard greens or a simple bowl of beans, hearty enough to stand alone as a snack when money was scarce. Street vendors sold them wrapped in newspaper at church homecomings, and neighbors traded secrets about which cornmeal gave the best crunch. The sound of batter meeting hot iron became a music of its own, echoing through small kitchens on quiet evenings. Today, these molds often sit forgotten in cupboards, but a warm cornbread stick still delivers a taste of the past that is both humble and magnificent. Molasses pull candy turned an ordinary evening into a celebration of sticky fun and family patience. Thick molasses was boiled until it reached a glossy stage, then poured onto buttered pans to cool just enough for handling. Children and adults buttered their hands and began the long, rhythmic process of pulling and folding the warm candy until it turned a light golden color and grew chewy. The sweet strands stretched like ribbons, twisting into shapes that hardened into bite-sized treats once cooled. Autumn was the favorite season for this ritual, when cool air helped the candy set and neighbors gathered for the show. The smell of molasses clung to clothing and hair, a sugary perfume that marked a good night well spent. Every piece carried a hint of smoke from the kettle and a memory of shared laughter. Modern kitchens rarely see such slow, hands-on candy making, but those who remember know the pull of tradition is as strong as the candy itself. Hot water. Cornbread fritters were the quick answer to hunger when a hearty snack was needed before supper or after school. Cooks stirred boiling water into seasoned cornmeal, forming a thick dough that could be shaped into small patties with a spoon. Dropped into a skillet of hot bacon drippings, the fritters sizzled and browned within minutes, filling the room with a toasty aroma that made waiting difficult. The crust formed a crisp shell while the inside stayed tender and warm. Children often burned their fingers snatching them from the pan before they cooled, eager to taste the smoky corn flavor. These fritters paired perfectly with a drizzle of cane syrup or a slice of fresh tomato when gardens were plentiful. They proved that simple ingredients and a hot stove could create pure comfort faster than any fancy recipe. Today, the memory of that first crunchy bite still lives wherever people remember the sound of cornmeal meeting hot iron. Tea time. Lemon chess squares carried the tang of fresh citrus into parlors where neighbors gathered for quiet afternoon visits. Based on the old-fashioned chess pie, these bars combined tart lemon juice with sugar, eggs, and a touch of cornmeal to create a dense, custardy filling. Poured over a simple shortbread crust and baked until golden, the squares were sliced neatly and dusted with a whisper of powdered sugar if it could be spared. Their bright flavor cut through the heaviness of traditional sweets, offering a refreshing note that matched the clink of teacups and the soft murmur of conversation. Hostesses prized the recipe because it kept well at room temperature and could be prepared a day ahead, making it perfect for church socials and family reunions. Children who tasted them for the first time often asked for seconds, surprised by the burst of sunshine flavor. Though rarely baked now, these squares remain a symbol of hospitality and quiet elegance, a reminder that a little lemon and patience could turn humble ingredients into something unforgettable. Spiced pecan pralines once lined church fundraising tables and family picnic baskets with their glossy sweetness and gentle crunch. Whole pecans were toasted until fragrant, then coated in a bubbling mixture of brown sugar, butter, and warm spices like cinnamon and clove. The candy cooled into soft clusters that broke apart with a satisfying snap, each bite a perfect balance of nutty richness and spiced caramel. Volunteers wrapped the pralines in wax paper or tucked them into small paper bags, selling them to raise money for community projects or simply to share a taste of love. Children waited eagerly for the last bits left to harden on the pan, scraping every sticky corner. Their aroma filled kitchens long after the candy was gone, a scent of celebration and togetherness. Today, store-bought sweets rarely capture that handmade charm, but the memory of spiced pecan pralines still carries the warmth of fellowship and the pride of a well-kept family recipe. Pickled watermelon rind chips turned what many considered scraps into a chewy, sweet tart treat that brightened long summer afternoons. After the red flesh was eaten, thrifty cooks peeled the green skin and cut the pale rind into thin strips. These were simmered in a syrup of vinegar, sugar, and spices until translucent, then laid out to dry slightly for a texture somewhere between fruit leather and candied peel. The result was a snack both refreshing and delightfully surprising, a clever way to honor every part of the harvest. Children carried jars of the glossy slices to picnics, where their tangy bite cut through the heat. Neighbors traded jars as gifts, each household claiming its own secret spice blend. The chips lasted for weeks in a cool pantry, offering a taste of summer long after the first frost. Today, they remain a testament to creativity and respect for the land, proof that nothing in a watermelon need ever be wasted. Sweet potato biscuit sandwiches were small but mighty, combining tender biscuits with the natural sweetness of a beloved root vegetable. Mashed sweet potatoes colored the dough a gentle orange and added moistness that kept each biscuit soft even after a day. Baked in cast-iron pans, they emerged golden and fragrant, ready to be split and filled with cane syrup, apple butter, or even a slice of country ham when available. Families served them at holiday breakfasts and late-night suppers alike, delighting in their versatility and comforting taste. Children often snuck extra sandwiches while elders shared stories around the table, the scent of warm sweet potato filling the room. These little treats symbolized celebration without extravagance, proof that a simple garden crop could create a moment of quiet luxury. Though few kitchens prepare them today, the memory of that first bite, soft and sweet against a drizzle of syrup, lingers like a treasured song passed from one generation to the next. Ginger molasses drop cookies carried the bold spice of ginger and the deep sweetness of molasses into lunch baskets and picnic tins across the South. The dough, thick with dark syrup and fragrant with ground ginger, cinnamon, and clove, baked into soft rounds that stayed moist for days. Families loved them because they traveled well, perfect for train rides, long church meetings, or a neighborly visit across town. Children often helped roll the dough into balls, dusting their fingers with flour while sneaking tiny tastes of the spicy batter. The cookies emerged from the oven puffed and slightly cracked, their aroma filling every corner of the house with a cozy warmth that lingered until bedtime. Wrapped in paper and tied with string, they became tokens of affection passed between friends and sweethearts. Today, packaged cookies dominate store shelves, but none capture the slow-baked heart of these homemade delights. Each bite is a gentle reminder of days when sharing a simple cookie could speak volumes about care and connection. Okra poppers brought a lively crunch to community fish fries and backyard gatherings where neighbors lingered late into the evening. Fresh young okra pods were rinsed, sliced, and tossed in seasoned cornmeal before a quick dip in hot oil that sealed in their garden brightness. The sizzle filled the air with a nutty scent that mixed perfectly with the aroma of frying catfish and hush puppies. Served straight from the skillet while still hot, each popper offered a tender interior wrapped in a crisp golden coat. Children reached for them faster than the adults could refill the platter, their fingers dusted with cornmeal as they darted back for more. A sprinkle of salt and a dash of pepper vinegar gave the final bite a pleasant heat. These simple snacks showed how a humble vegetable from backyard rows could turn into a party favorite. The memory of standing beside the fryer, watching those green coins dance in bubbling oil, remains a treasured scene of summer nights filled with laughter, music, and the smell of good food shared freely among friends. Pimento cheese finger sandwiches were the pride of Black Southern tea rooms and Sunday socials, offering a creamy richness that felt elegant without being costly. Grated sharp cheddar was blended with chopped pimentos, a spoon of mayonnaise, and a hint of cayenne to create a smooth, slightly spicy spread. Soft white bread slices were trimmed of crusts and layered with generous spoonfuls, then cut into neat rectangles that fit perfectly onto a small plate beside a cup of sweet tea. Hostesses loved them because they could be made ahead of time and stayed fresh through long afternoons of conversation and music. Guests savored the mild heat that lingered after each bite, a balance of creamy and peppery that never failed to please. Children often hovered near the serving tray, snatching a sandwich or two when the adults looked away. Today, when store-bought spreads lack the same homemade charm, these delicate sandwiches remain a symbol of hospitality, grace, and the quiet joy of sharing food that carries generations of care and community pride. Beni seed wafers carried the flavor of history, their nutty crunch tracing directly to West African culinary traditions brought by enslaved ancestors. Beni seeds, the heirloom sesame prized for their rich aroma, were toasted lightly to release their fragrance before being mixed into a simple batter of sugar, butter, and flour. Spoonfuls of the mixture were dropped onto baking sheets, spreading into thin, lacy cookies that turned golden at the edges. The wafers cooled into delicate discs that snapped crisply between the teeth, yet melted almost instantly on the tongue. Families served them at weddings, church anniversaries, and holiday gatherings, where their subtle sweetness paired perfectly with hot tea or coffee. Children often helped stir the batter, inhaling the warm scent as they sneaked tastes of the dough. Each bite carried a connection to ancestors who kept these seeds alive across oceans and generations. Sharing a plate of Beni wafers remains a quiet act of remembrance, honoring resilience while delighting everyone lucky enough to taste their gentle, toasty flavor. Hoghead cheese crackers turned an old-world preservation method into a savory late-night snack perfect for card games and neighborly visits. The terrine was made by simmering pig heads with onions, celery, and spices until the meat became tender enough to shred and set in its own natural gelatin. Once chilled, it sliced easily into firm, flavorful rounds flecked with herbs and bits of rich meat. Hosts laid these slices on plain soda crackers, sometimes adding a thin smear of mustard or a splash of hot sauce for an extra kick. The combination of silky meat and crisp cracker delivered a satisfying contrast that kept guests reaching for more between shuffles of the deck. Though its name surprised newcomers, The taste won them over with every bite. Hoghead cheese celebrated a tradition of using every part of the animal, a practice born from necessity but remembered for its remarkable flavor and the fellowship it inspired on long, lively nights. Apple Brown Betty Bites shrank a beloved dessert into hand-held treats perfect for picnics and after-school snacks. Cooks layered diced tart apples with crumbled bread tossed in cinnamon, nutmeg, and brown sugar, pressing the mixture into greased muffin tins. As they baked, the apples softened into a fragrant filling, while the crumbs formed a caramelized top that crackled slightly under a spoon. Each bite delivered the taste of warm apple pie without the need for plates or forks. Mothers packed them into lunch pails, and church ladies sold them by the dozen at bake sales, where their sweet aroma drew crowds. Served warm or at room temperature, they captured the cozy feeling of a full-sized brown Betty in a small, portable package. Children loved the sticky sweetness clinging to their fingertips, a reminder of autumn evenings and family kitchens filled with the scent of spice and simmering fruit. These little bites carried the comfort of home wherever they traveled. Peanut butter molasses. Balls provided an easy no-bake treat that fit neatly into a child's pocket or school lunch tin. Thick molasses was stirred into creamy peanut butter, then rolled with crushed crackers or oatmeal until the mixture held together. Small portions were shaped into bite-sized spheres and rolled again in powdered sugar for a gentle sweet finish. The combination of roasted peanut flavor and dark molasses offered both energy and comfort, a rich snack that satisfied without need of an oven. Parents appreciated how quickly they came together, especially on hot days when firing up the stove was unwelcome. Wrapped in wax paper, the little balls traveled well to playgrounds, fishing trips, or church picnics, where they disappeared as quickly as they were unwrapped. Their chewy texture and deep caramel note made them a favorite for generations of children who needed a quick bite before chores or school. Today, they remain a symbol of thrift and simple delight, proof that the best treats sometimes require only a bowl and a spoon. Collard green hand pies transformed a hearty pot of greens into a portable feast that could be carried to work fields or church gatherings. Tender collard leaves were cooked slowly with onions, smoked meat, and a splash of vinegar until rich and flavorful. The mixture was drained well and tucked into rounds of flaky pastry, which were folded and sealed before being baked or fried to a golden finish. Each pie held a burst of smoky greens balanced by the buttery crust, a combination that filled bellies and satisfied cravings without need of a fork. Women preparing church suppers often made dozens at a time, filling long tables with the savory turnovers that disappeared as soon as they cooled. Their aroma drifted through open windows, calling neighbors from porches and children from games. Collard green hand pies offered both nourishment and convenience, a snack steeped in tradition and love that still brings smiles to anyone lucky enough to taste one fresh from the pan. Blackberry hand pies were the sweet counterpoint to the savory collard version, showcasing the bounty of summer berries gathered from fence rows and backyard vines. The fruit was simmered with a little sugar until it thickened into a jammy filling, then spooned onto circles of pastry that were folded and sealed tight. Each pie was fried until the crust turned crisp and golden, trapping the bubbling blackberry juice inside. The first bite released a rush of deep purple sweetness that stained lips and fingers with proof of its freshness. Church ladies sold them at summer fairs, wrapping each warm pie in paper so visitors could eat while strolling the grounds. Children saved their pennies for a chance to taste the juicy treat, a memory that lingered long after the fair closed for the night. Blackberry hand pies remain an enduring emblem of resourcefulness and joy, a simple recipe that transformed wild fruit into something nearly magical under skilled, loving hands. Cracklin cornbread squares celebrated the art of turning every part of the hog into something delicious. Rendered pork fat was cooked until crisp cracklins formed, each piece salty and golden. These were stirred into a rich cornmeal batter made with buttermilk and a touch of baking powder, then baked in a hot cast iron pan until the edges browned and the center stayed moist. The cracklins gave each bite a smoky crunch that paired perfectly with a bowl of beans or a slice of fresh tomato. Families often baked big pans for harvest gatherings, cutting the cornbread into generous squares that vanished before they cooled. Children loved the savory surprises hidden in each slice, while adults appreciated how the recipe honored a tradition of using every resource. Cracklin cornbread offered comfort and flavor in equal measure, a dish that turned thrift into celebration and filled kitchens with the welcoming scent of corn and slow-cooked pork on chilly evenings. Cane syrup popcorn balls were the shining stars of outdoor movie nights and autumn hayrides, sweet, sticky treats that drew both children and grown-ups to the snack table. Freshly popped corn was tossed with a bubbling mixture of cane syrup, butter, and a hint of vanilla until every kernel glistened. While still warm, the coated popcorn was pressed by buttered hands into firm, round balls that cooled into chewy perfection. Friends passed them around under the stars as reels flickered on makeshift screens, laughter mingling with the faint crackle of the projector. The candy's deep caramel note and gentle chew made each bite last, stretching the fun of the evening. They traveled well, too, wrapped in wax paper and tucked into baskets for school events or church socials. The memory of those syrup-scented nights lives on in the minds of anyone who ever tasted one, a reminder of simple pleasures shared in the glow of community and the soft light of the moon. Buttermilk fried green tomato chips were a crunchy revelation born from gardens heavy with late summer fruit. Firm green tomatoes were sliced into thin rounds and soaked briefly in tangy buttermilk to soften their bite. Each slice was then dredged in seasoned cornmeal and slipped into a skillet of shimmering oil, where they sizzled and browned within minutes. The result was a snack that snapped between the teeth, tart at the center with a golden crust that carried a hint of smoke from the hot pan. Families served them in paper napkins at fish fries and evening porch gatherings, passing plates while storytelling stretched deep into the night. Children reached for them faster than the cook could refill the platter, licking salty crumbs from their fingers. Some liked a drizzle of hot sauce, while others preferred them plain, letting the bright tang of the tomato shine. Today, the memory of that quick garden treat lingers as a taste of warm southern evenings when neighbors shared more than just conversation. Roasted peanuts in paper cones filled fairgrounds and churchyard picnics with a smell so rich it could stop strangers in their tracks. Vendors scooped raw peanuts into black iron pans set over open flames, stirring constantly as the shells darkened and split. Warmed by wood smoke and salted just enough to tease the tongue, the nuts were poured into rolled paper cones that fit easily into waiting hands. Children clutched their cones while parents counted coins and laughed with friends, the rhythmic crack of shells echoing across the grounds. On cool evenings, the heat from the peanuts felt like a small fire against chilly palms, a comfort as music and laughter floated through the night air. Travelers often brought a cone home, the scent lasting long after the last bite. This simple snack carried the spirit of community, proof that something as small as a peanut could draw people together beneath lantern light and wide southern skies. Sweet potato pie bars delivered the flavor of a holiday feast in a tidy square that fit neatly on any dessert plate. Mashed sweet potatoes were whipped with warm spices, brown sugar, and a touch of vanilla before being spread over a buttery shortbread crust. The pan baked until the filling set into a custard-like layer that sliced cleanly into bars, each one rich enough to feel like celebration. Church potlucks and family reunions often featured these bites because they traveled well and satisfied every sweet craving without the need for a fork. Children loved their deep orange color and the way the sweet potatoes' natural richness blended with cinnamon and nutmeg. Hosts dusted the tops with a faint layer of powdered sugar or served them plain, letting the earthy sweetness speak for itself. Even today, a single bite can recall the warmth of autumn kitchens and the joy of gatherings where every guest left with both a story and a full heart. Spicy pickled okra spears brought a lively tang to quiet evenings when friends stopped by for a cool drink. Fresh okra pods were packed into jars with garlic, dill, and a scattering of hot peppers, then covered with a brine of vinegar and spices. After a short wait, the spears emerged crisp, fiery, and pleasantly sour, perfect for nibbling straight from the jar. The first snap released a burst of peppery fragrance that lingered on the fingertips, a reminder of summer gardens preserved through patient care. Families served them alongside cornbread or set them out in small dishes during card games and porch gatherings. Their bright heat paired well with iced tea or a splash of homemade fruit wine. Children sometimes puckered at the sharpness, but grown-ups prized the bite that cut through rich meals. Each spear carried the memory of warm soil and careful hands, proof that even the humblest vegetable could become a snack worth savoring slowly. Maple glazed pecan sandies turned ordinary shortbread into something worthy of quilting bees and church socials. Toasted pecans were folded into a buttery dough and baked until the edges browned just enough to release a warm, nutty aroma. While still warm, each cookie was brushed with a thin maple syrup glaze that seeped into the crumb, adding a mellow sweetness and soft sheen. Neighbors often arrived at gatherings with baskets lined in cloth, filled to the brim with these delicate sandies that melted with every bite. The combination of crisp shortbread and rich pecans made them a favorite for afternoon coffee or late evening tea. Children waited eagerly for the extra glaze left in the bowl, dipping fingers for a taste of maple before the adults claimed the last cookie. Even now, their scent can stir a memory of friendly laughter, the rustle of fabric, and the quiet pride of sharing something handmade with people who mattered most. Fried apple rings were a festival of sweetness born from simple orchard fruit and a hot skillet. Tart apples were sliced into thick rings, dipped in a batter of flour, eggs, and milk, then lowered into bubbling oil until the coating puffed and turned golden. While still hot, the rings were rolled in cinnamon sugar that clung to the warm crust like a sparkling coat. Each bite released a burst of soft apple and fragrant spice that needed no garnish to impress. Street fairs and autumn picnics featured baskets of these treats, their aroma carrying across fields and drawing children like bees to honey. Parents packed them for school outings, where the sweet scent filled lunchrooms and playgrounds alike. The simple combination of fruit, batter, and spice proved that indulgence could be both affordable and memorable, leaving a trail of cinnamon dust and happy faces wherever the rings appeared. Brown sugar pound cake cubes brought the richness of a full loaf cake into bite-sized pieces perfect for sharing. Bakers creamed brown sugar with butter until fluffy, adding eggs and a splash of vanilla before folding in sifted flour for a dense but tender crumb. Once baked, the cake cooled just enough to cut into neat cubes that showed off their caramel hue. Served on small plates beside coffee or sweet tea, these squares provided a steady sweetness without overwhelming the palate. Families liked them for afternoon visits when neighbors dropped by unannounced, their warm aroma promising comfort and conversation. Children reached for them during church gatherings, savoring the deep toffee notes that only brown sugar can provide. Each cube held the memory of patient mixing and slow baking, a quiet reward for anyone lucky enough to taste one while it was still slightly warm from the oven. Sweet potato donut holes transformed a familiar root into a celebration of autumn flavors. Mashed sweet potatoes were stirred into a spiced dough enriched with a touch of milk and butter, then scooped into small rounds and fried until puffed and golden. While still hot, the donut holes were rolled in cinnamon sugar, which melted slightly against the warm crust to create a fragrant glaze. They were served at harvest festivals and after church services, filling baskets that emptied before the preacher finished his farewell. The earthy sweetness of the potatoes combined with gentle spice made each bite comforting and rich. Children loved watching the donuts bob in the oil before fishing them out with long-handled spoons, eager for the first warm taste. These little bites remain a memory of crisp fall mornings when the scent of frying dough promised a moment of pure joy shared with family and neighbors. Blackstrap molasses taffy brought families together for long evenings of laughter and sticky fingers. Dark molasses was boiled until it reached the perfect temperature, then poured onto buttered slabs to cool just enough for handling. Groups gathered around to pull and fold the warm candy, stretching it repeatedly until it lightened in color and became chewy. Children giggled as strands clung to their hands, while adults traded stories over the steady rhythm of pulling and twisting. Once cooled, the taffy snapped with a rich, smoky sweetness that lingered on the tongue. Making it was more than a recipe. It was an event that turned ordinary nights into celebrations of patience and togetherness. The scent of molasses hung in the air long after the last piece was wrapped in wax paper, a reminder that shared effort and simple ingredients could create something unforgettable and delicious. Honey butter yeast rolls came from the oven soft enough to pull apart with a gentle tug, their golden tops glistening under a brush of warm honeyed butter. The dough, mixed with milk and a touch of sugar, rose slowly until light and airy before being shaped into small rounds. Baked until the kitchen filled with the comforting smell of fresh bread, they emerged pillowy and ready to eat while still warm. Families served them at Sunday dinners, holiday feasts, and evening gatherings, where they vanished as soon as the basket reached the table. Children often fought for the center roll, believing it the softest and sweetest. The combination of tender crumb and sweet glaze made each bite a quiet indulgence, perfect on its own or alongside collard greens and roasted meats. Even today, the memory of breaking open a warm roll and watching steam rise carries the feeling of home, welcome, and pure satisfaction. Share the snack you would revive, like this video, and subscribe to keep these soulful flavors alive.